Of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everyone to the January 2024 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Before we get underway, there's a few matters I need to address. First, the fire exit is located to your left. In the event of a fire, you will be notified by an announcement. If so notified, please move in a calm and orderly fashion to the exit. Do not use the elevators. Use either the north or the south stairs to leave the building. Our meetings are being recorded by our Secretary, Michelle, for the purpose of a record and minutes. So please identify yourself each time that you come to the podium and speak into the microphone. We follow the items in the order that they appear on the agenda. Extra copies of the agenda are available near the door. The procedure that we follow is that once the case is called, the applicant or their representative comes to the podium, identifies themselves, states their address, pauses a moment, raises their right hand to be sworn, and then presents their case. During the presentation of the case, the members of the board have an opportunity to question or engage in a discussion with the applicant. At the conclusion of that process, the case is open to public input. Anyone wishing to speak to the board regarding the application should come to the podium, identify themselves along with their address, and direct their questions and comments to the board and not the applicant. Once all the public input has been completed, the applicant or their representative will be given an opportunity to respond to any public input. At that point, the hearing will be closed and we'll move on to the next case. After all the cases have been heard, the board will take a short recess and then return to deliberate each case in the order of the applicants that are still present. No further input is allowed at this point, but you may stay and listen to the deliberation. If you wish to leave, you can find out the results by calling the Planning and Zoning Department tomorrow morning after 9 a.m. or catching us on, I think it's 1300 on cable. I'd like to welcome Andrew Evans to the board. He's our newest member. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, we will get underway. Our first case.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First case on the agenda is case number ZB 2023-12-01, which is a tabled item. Request by Hannah Wall for area variances to maintain existing front yard fencing, exceeding maximum permitted height and linear footage, and non-conforming fence type on premises 4004 St. Paul Boulevard in an R1 residential district. I would just like to remind all the board members to remember to please press and hold their buttons when they're beginning to speak.
Take a motion to move it off the table.
Second. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. And no one is absent. I knew I forgot something.
Hi, I'm Hannah Wall from 4004 St. Paul Boulevard, 14617. So my husband came last time.
Would you raise your right hand, please?
Oh,
Do you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
yes.
Okay.
Can I ask questions to clarify about what happened last time? Is that allowed?
Well, you can ask. Whether we answer or not will depend on what the question is.
Sure. So last time there was talk about not wanting to allow the gate that I requested across the driveway.
Yes.
But there wasn't really, I wasn't sure if there was like a final answer for that. So that, I don't want to waste everybody's time, and I kind of need that for the whole plan. So if that's just like off the table, then I don't really need the variance. So,
Well, the application that you've submitted doesn't conform with what the ordinance requires.
right,
You're asking for a number of exceptions.
Yes.
You're asking for the type of fence,
yes.
height of the fence, you're asking for a gate.
Right, and a lot of those I can be flexible about. I like went and like looked at different options, and I would bring them to you, but that one, I couldn't figure out a way around it. So if that one's just like a no, then I wouldn't bother presenting the rest of it, you know?
Well, my recollection of the discussion that we had, and I reviewed the video of it, is that we had a number of questions,
Right,
and that your husband, who was here, was going to engage in discussions with you
yes,
and look into the requirements for certification as a daycare facility,
right,
and come back to us this month with an understanding of what those requirements were and how your plan might be modified based upon the concerns that we did raise.
yes.
One of the concerns that we raised was we don't like that wooden fence or the wall that you wanted to.
Yeah, he
put up.
wasn't quite right about what I had planned there. It wasn't supposed to be stockade fence. It was thicker picket across the front. But one of the things I was going to bring and ask is, could it be just a regular picket fence, just like a thinner picket, if that would be allowed?
Well, what does the code say concerning the type of fence?
It does allow picket fence.
Well, then, if the code allows picket fence, then the issue before us isn't whether or not a picket fence is allowed, it's how high can it be?
Yes, that and the linear feet. And then there was also, they had the chain link on there that's in the bushes. So if that needs to go, the chain link in the bushes, then there was the more decorative black metal fencing, and I have an example on my phone. I don't know if I can show you guys, if that's allowed. Can I bring it up?
Just-
So,
You need to show it to everyone.
aluminum, I believe.
Oh, this is very similar to the fencing that I was describing for your husband.
Yeah,
That's,
I found it based on your description.
Yeah.
So
That's fine.
my request is to keep the chain link just because I already spent $7,000 on it, but if I have to switch it out to something else, this would work in that bush area. I don't want to put wood there because it's really in the bushes and I'm afraid it's going to rot and I won't be able to get in there and paint it all the time and that kind of stuff. My preference would still be to have the wood across the front just because I think it looks nicer, especially for a daycare. It gives that kind of like cottage feel, which I think my house outside kind of also looks like that. So that would be my preference. But again, I would be willing to do the whole thing with this metal, black metal, if that's, we'll keep the babies out of the road,
that's the number one priority.
Right, exactly. But the gate is a big stopping point because, so the way that I designed it, and do you guys have the original packets that I had? Okay, great. There is a pull-in before the gate. Part of my driveway would not be gated, so anybody who needed to pull in off the road wouldn't be stopped there. I don't think my husband mentioned that part because he just wasn't as familiar. So UPS truck, people pulling in for the daycare, they would be able to pull in. He and I discussed it and we were saying maybe we could have like designated drop-off times where the gates are just open so that nobody would get backed up. But usually with a home daycare, people aren't dropping off all at the same time. It's not like a school. It's usually, as they need to for work. And the reason that I would like to include a portion of the driveway in the fenced-in area, I have a couple reasons, but so I do want to have an area for the toddlers to use tricycles and things that are on pavement. I also know that within the next 5 probably years, I'm going to need to have the roof replaced and some masonry in the front redone. And I was also hoping to have some play structures put in for the children. And if I fenced in the whole front yard without any ability for people to access the front of the house with like a truck or building materials, that would be very difficult. I would probably have to remove part of the fence during that, which would disrupt, I'm hoping to start in, open in September. That's the goal. It takes 6 months to get your certification, and I was advised to wait to start that process until I'm within that 6-month period because it will expire if I start it too early. So I'm looking at starting, in March. The other thing that we talked about is we heard some of the community comments about being worried about turning around and it being tight. So we can do it, but it is tight having 2 cars back there. So taking that into consideration, we were saying maybe we could add like pavers or more driveway into the lawn a little bit, and obviously we need to get permitting and everything for that too. But to add a space that just like 1 car could easily turn around in that front yard, I know that the neighbors like across the street and to the side have that sort of turnaround. And I think that, honestly, we tried it out just with the grass, and it seems like there'd be plenty of space for that, plus like, child equipment. And we could probably even do something that was not just pavement, like something like brick or something that looked nicer. And so then they could also utilize that for tricycles, sidewalk chalk and stuff when people aren't needing to come and turn around.
Several years ago, we had an application in front of us concerning the old Carlin Road School. And the applicant there was going to use a large area that had been lawn as parking.
Okay.
And what they used was some kind of a paver
Yeah.
that has like holes in it. It
Yeah,
supports a
that's
car,
what we
but the
were
grass
imagining.
grows so it doesn't look like a paved area. The grass is still visible.
Yeah, and then the runoff doesn't,
Yeah.
we were looking at that too. I'm not sure, we just didn't look into like what is permitted. I would love to do something like that.
I'm not sure that requires any. It might require a building permit, but
Go into the right-of-way, you wouldn't need a DPW 199 highway permit if you did not, if you
Okay.
stayed within your property.
Yeah.
But the zoning code only allows you to pave 35% of your front yard. So I would
Okay.
have to check with code compliance in regards to the grassy pavers.
Okay.
Because if somebody still drives by, they're gonna think that you're parking on the lawn, which,
Right.
again, is not permitted.
We wouldn't let anyone park there. It would
Yeah.
just be as a way to like pull in and turn around so that they didn't have to
Sure.
back up onto.
Sure,
St. Paul.
sure.
And one thing that was mentioned, and this is just an aside, was that one of the reasons that you allowed a gate in the past was for an autistic child. And my 17-year-old is autistic and does have slight flight risk. They are higher functioning, but they do sometimes take off. They were at a special program at the high school the other day, and they had a meltdown, and they ran all the way to the lake, and it was pretty tough to find them. So having a barrier, if it doesn't happen often, but every once in a while when they really have like a bad meltdown, they just take off, and something that would slow them down would be helpful. But that's not the main reason that I'm asking for this.
Can you just describe where the gate would be again?
Sure. So my driveway is along the side of my property. And if you were to pull in, and there's about a car length, the gate would then stop here. So you'd pull in just from St. Paul without any barrier, and then there would be a gate right there. And that connects to the fence that goes all the way to, there is actually already a chain link fence my neighbors have. The fence is in like their side and backyard. So my would go along the side of the driveway, and then if this, I don't know if I could draw it for you. Would that be helpful?
Do you mind just
Yes.
marking
Yeah.
it on here, please?
Is that perpendicular to this? This,
So it would be right here across this part of the driveway.
right, so on this page right here, she's saying it's perpendicular to this.
Well, here, just show me on there, Ruth.
Okay, so if this is my driveway pulling in, this is where a car length would be, and then this is where.
That would be the gate,
Yes.
okay.
There's also more gates, but those are actually proposed, because they're behind the front.
Yeah.
in looking at the pictures, you have a 3-section of chain link to the left of the driveway.
And I would.
And is it the end of that the gate would be?
Yes.
Okay.
And that is the visible section of chain link, so I understand that no matter what, you guys probably want me to get rid of that, right?
So,
that little visible chunk of chain link, I understand that has to go, because you can see that really easily. I was hoping to keep the chain link that was in the bushes just because you really can't see it anyway, and it's already there, and I paid $7,000 when I had the original permit, thinking it was okay, and it's up already. So it would be nice if it could stay, but again, if it has to go and we do the black fencing,
So-
we're willing to do that.
you're talking about the chain link fence that would be on the south side of the driveway to the
Yes.
right as you're pulling in.
Well, there's two sections, so it would be to the left of the driveway. Then there's another section that's to the right of the driveway that's in the bushes.
The section to the left is the section that has the three sections that, as you
It's
said,
visible, yes.
needs to go.
Yeah,
But on the north side, there's a chain link fence that belongs to the neighbor, I understand.
well, it starts
Maybe.
with the neighbor, and there's both of my neighbors have chain link fences. And just as an aside, I did speak to both, and they were both fine with any kind of fencing I wanted to put in, neither of them cared. But that, we extended that chain link to the front. So
Right.
some of that is ours, some of that is theirs.
Okay. So if I understand you correctly, what you're indicating is that after the conversations and discussions that we had in December, you are agreeable to using the black picket fencing that you showed us to run parallel to St. Paul,
Yeah,
to replace
Yep.
the three sections of chain link that are to the left, to the north side of the driveway,
yes,
and to have the gate go from that point across the driveway again in the black
sure, yep.
decorative fencing, right?
Yeah,
Okay. And that would satisfy the requirements for OCFS?
yes, at first I was having trouble, one of the requirements is that the gaps need to be 3 to 4 inches so that children don't get stuck or
Right.
get through. And I was having a hard time finding the black decorative fence. A lot of it's 4 1/4 inches, but I did find it was 3 and I think 3/4 inch. So I found it, and that's the one I showed you guys.
Okay.
So can you just describe because I'm not sold on like the whole paver idea and like pulling around. Is that tree gonna have to get taken out? I'm not sold on that part either.
No tree would have to get taken out. There's a couple trees in the very front, and then I have a big yard. I did have a tree that was there originally when I bought the house that had to come down because there was a lot of dead wood, but that's no longer there. When we were experimenting with driving into the yard, there's enough space for 2 or 3 cars could just pull in, and even more. It's a pretty big yard. So we were going to put pavers down in sort of a semicircle connecting the driveway to the walkway that you see there. It's just grassy yard right now.
The slate walk shown on the survey map?
Yeah. And just enough so that, a car or an SUV could come in and use it to turn around in. But we could still use it as a place for kids to play as well.
Good evening, how you doing?
Hi.
My question would be, what is the proper name for that black fence that you're referring to?
It's a good question that I don't.
You said it's not wrought iron, what is the proper
it's
name?
aluminum. It's made out of aluminum.
Okay,
Now, the one that I found, it said like New Orleans style or something, but it was from Lowe's. I had a really hard time finding one that fit the criteria, so I'm not exactly sure what the proper name for it is. I'm sorry. I know that it's aluminum. I know that the one that I found on the Lowe's website said like New Orleans something.
I'd just like to know what it is.
Yes.
I'd
I could
agree
look
too.
really quickly. I'm not sure how long it would take me, but I could try to pull it up. That was just a screenshot because I was afraid my internet would be slow. But I could try to get it up. Let me see.
Quick question too about the turnaround. So are you gonna have, like, when you make the semicircle, are you gonna have people driving back into the driveway to pull out, or are they gonna just pull over the sidewalk and then just pull out that way? How are you gonna configure that?
I don't quite understand, I'm sorry.
So are you going to have, when you configure like cause you're gonna take out the chain link fence, right?
Okay. Well, I would replace it.
Okay. So you're gonna replace that chain link fence with the black fence. I'm just trying to visualize it.
It wouldn't be a pull-through. I wouldn't be dealing with the sidewalk at all. They would still be the same driveway entrance and exit. Is that the question?
So people have to do a three-point turn.
Yeah. Well, yes, they would have to come in and turn, yes.
And they'd be using that, what's shown in this photo on the fourth, I think it's the fourth page. They'd be using that, what's now a grassy area between the end of the chain link fence and the slate walk.
Yes.
Top picture on the fourth page.
Okay, I was,
It's actually the first picture on the fourth page.
I found the exact name. It's Orleans, not New Orleans. It's Ironcraft Orleans, 4-foot high, 6-foot wide panels. It says black powder coated aluminum split rail press point fence.
But this fence is still gonna be there. It's gonna be black, right?
Would you like to see the? Okay.
So they're gonna pull in here, go here, and then have to. Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, let me just, so you're withdrawing the request for a non-conforming because you're willing to put up a picket fence, which is conforming?
That would be my preference, would be to use the wooden picket across the front, but if that's not agreeable, I'd be willing to go with the black all the way. I don't know if the black metal is conforming or non-conforming. It was just what was suggested last time, so I went and found some.
I believe the black picket fence that you showed would
Is
be
conforming.
Conforming.
Okay.
If it's split, if it's considered split rail, it's conforming.
Okay.
The portions that are still, that she is asking to keep that remain chain link
Oh,
is
yes.
not conforming,
Right.
though.
If I
On the
could,
driveway,
yeah.
Anywhere in the front yard.
anywhere in the front.
So the,
Or in the front yard
in the bushes, the two sides in the bushes.
All right.
is not conforming.
Yes.
I had a problem with the wooden fence.
Okay.
The stockade fence just is totally unacceptable to me. As far as chain link fences go, they're up and down St. Paul Boulevard all over the place, so I don't have a problem with chain link if you want to, and as long as you're willing to replace the rest of it with a black picket fence. That's,
Would you be willing to do the wooden pickets in the front that are just like traditional, like slim wooden picket fence?
The picture that you showed in your,
That's a thicker, right? Yeah, not that. That was what I originally wanted to do, just,
the problem I have with the wooden style pickets is, like last month I referenced looking like a wall.
right. So like the traditional cottage style, like smaller pickets, would that be okay? Or is it just black metal?
I think from our, well, at least from my perspective, our experience with the other fencing that's been put up on St. Paul is that it's not as much, it's not as a hindrance to the aesthetics and the view of keeping open air as a picket fence is.
Okay.
yeah, to me, it doesn't matter if picket fence is made out of metal or
Right.
wood, as long as it has openings like a picket fence.
Okay.
The one you showed us, did it have the points on the top?
Yeah,
You might want to check if there would be a problem with daycare too.
they don't have a regulation, so that will just depend when they come and do the inspection. It's not written in anywhere.
Didn't we ask a couple times that we got the flat top instead and not the
Yeah,
pointed?
is there an option of not having the points at the top of each of the,
I
Vertical
wasn't able
sections?
to, I looked at those and I wasn't able to find one with the width across that was correct, but it's possible that it exists. I just didn't find it. I had a hard time finding the metal ones that didn't have a gap that was more than 4 inches, because they're pre-made, so it's not like with the wood where you can sort of decide. But if it exists, I would rather have a flat top than the spikes, for sure.
Well, I know what you're saying about if they come and do an inspection and give you some trouble and you got them up.
Yeah.
That's something too, so.
any other questions, comments?
No, what's the code for, the pavement? Is it 35% of the total lot or the front yard?
It's 35% of the front yard.
Front yard, okay. The turnaround might be problematic based on that, but I personally wouldn't have a problem granting a variance for the hidden driveway pavers, or whatever you want to call them. I know our code calls for pavement has to be asphalt. But
Like I said, I'd have to check with code enforcement on that.
we could grant a variance for the other type of, because that technology came out after this code was written. So,
The only issue I have with the turnaround is I know that there's a couple of car lengths, but if you have multiple families dropping off roughly in the same time frame, because they're not gonna just open the door and push their kid out. They're gonna stop. They're gonna walk their child up. I just have an issue with the turnaround and then just like staying there, and then there's cars lining up at 7:45 in the morning. It just
Well, their
is not
driveway-
an easy place.
We
to-
have a much bigger driveway that goes all the way into the back of the house, so they could pull all the way back and then back out one at a time. We do even have a small turnaround in the backyard. It's just not that large, and so one of the neighbors had raised the concern that if there was a couple people, they might have trouble turning around in the backyard. So that was just a solution to that problem. I also have personally backed out of the driveway and not had a problem, but again, that if it was a busy time of day or something like that, I could see
On
it.
to St. Paul, you backed out?
Yeah,
Pretty brave.
thanks. I didn't know it was like controversial until I heard it in the meeting.
You were lucky.
Yeah, I guess so.
just a busy street.
Yeah. I think it's the time of day. I'm a stay-at-home mom now, so I'm doing it at like 11 in the morning and nobody's around. But at bus time, it does get very busy.
Still not as bad as Cooper Road in the morning for high school.
Any other questions, comments from the board?
Would it be a hardship if you decided to put that black fence all the way around? Take out all the other fence so it'd be
It would
uniform?
It would cost, so what happened was I got a permit for the original fence,
Yes.
but it was in error. And so it's already installed and I had to pay the fence company $7,000. I don't get any of that back. So I would then have to pay to have it removed and new fence to put in. So it would be a hardship, but I would be able to do it and willing to start my business.
Yes, I drove past your property, nice property you have there.
Yes.
Good concept that you have, but I would just like to see the black fence all the way around, so it'll be conform.
On the far northern side, it's in the bushes completely. So would that part be okay to leave?
Well, I saw that part as well. I don't have a problem with the height or the linear. It's just that I'm hoping that you would decide to use the same type of fencing. because your property is a nice-looking piece of property.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll open it up to public input. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor of this application?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, it was not advertised as a public hearing because the public hearing was closed.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, so we'll close this case then and move on to the next case on the agenda.
The next case on the agenda is case number ZB 2024-01-01. Request by Luisa Giovanni for an area variance to install 6-foot-high side yard fencing exceeding maximum permitted height on premises 56 Brooksview Drive in an R1 residential district.
I'm Luisa Giovannini, and I am at 56 Brookview Drive, 14617.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Before we get underway, want a general message to everyone who's here, and more importantly, given the number of people here, those who might be watching it tonight or some other time. I had a very, very difficult time driving by your house in the dark to find your house number.
Yeah, you should put
Sign.
some street lights up
Well,
there.
the sign out in front is what clued me in to the fact that it was your property that we were looking for.
Okay.
But if I was an ambulance driver or a fire truck driver, I would have
that
an
one shrub
incredible
got
hard
out of
time.
hand. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not about lights on the street. It's about lights on the house near the number and large enough numbers that you can see them and they're legible from the street. I could not believe at going all the way from Hudson down to where you are, there were only 3 or 4 houses where I could actually read from the street the house number. And that's not a good thing. But that wasn't directed specifically at you. That's a general comment that I make as often as I can to encourage people to make sure that their house numbers are visible and illuminated from the street for their own safety.
I don't disagree. I have a bush that got out of hand and needs to be taken out, so. Yeah.
So you want to put a fence up?
Yep, I want to put a fence around the backyard up forward onto the side of the garage. And so I'd like to use the same fencing all the way around. It's dog-eared wood fencing, 6 foot high. And so the variance would be from the back foundation forward along the side of the garage. It's coated for 4 foot high.
So what you're looking to do is fence in the area next to the garage?
Yes.
From the side yard over to the garage itself so that
Right,
it's
yep. And up about 7 feet in front of it.
in front of the garage?
Yes. That's where the gate would be.
And is there a reason for going past the front of the garage?
Well, the side of the garage is the only area that really has good sun, and that's where I had a garden before, so I'd like to put pots out and stuff and grow herbs and things like that.
I
I'm
take
trying
it
to
that-
keep the deer out.
I was
I
going
have
to
a
say.
lot of deer.
I thought that the deer took care of your garden, right?
They take care of everything. I gave up on the backyard trying to landscape it.
So you're not gonna go to the front of the house then?
No, no, no,
guess-
no, 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 no. No.
The tax map kinda implies you're going to the front of the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one shows a little different.
No, it ends quite a ways before the road and from the house.
The other drawing shows it a little better. All right.
Well, the highlights were with last month's packet.
Oh, that's interesting. Didn't notice that.
Or no, they were with the ones that were printed off, as opposed to the ones that were here tonight.
Yeah, the ones that are here tonight don't show the green on it.
Oh, I apologize.
That's all right,
My error.
but they are on what you sent out by email, so
I'm sorry, George.
it's all right.
The ones on the email show up.
Oh, you sent the email, which is in color. I don't have a color printer, sorry.
I apologize about that.
Not a problem. So there'll be a gate.
Yes. It would open in front of the garage door. So here's the garage. The fence would come this way, and that's where the gate would be.
And the gate would go across the driveway?
No, it would open into the driveway, out to the driveway, but it wouldn't be in the driveway.
Because I'm not seeing a point. I see the highlighting on the south side, and it appears to me to come up to the front of the house. Oh, this is
Here's the
different than what I
garage.
have. Now I see.
And then, oh, no, it should be in the package, maybe.
Fence is gonna go along the south property line, turn in 90 degrees and turn back to the garage.
So here's the garage, here's the side of the garage, and right there
Right
is
in
where
there.
the-
Okay.
Yeah, does that make?
Now I got it. Yep. All right. Thank you.
My highlighting went a little bit further than what she's actually proposing.
Yeah. And then I didn't realize, I didn't
don't-
read the other one correctly. So now we're all on the same page.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you. All right, so this is all deer generated?
Yes.
We sure have stimulated the economy in Arundecoit.
Fence economy, eh?
Fence economy anyway.
That and neighbors' leaves that don't get raked, but
That's a whole nother issue.
whole nother issue.
Yeah, it is.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, what's a dog ear privacy fence? Is that some type of metal? Is that,
No, it's wood.
oh, it's a wood fence?
Yeah, it's a wood fence. It's like, you know how a picket fence comes up like this sharp? These are cut off.
Oh, okay.
I just want to have one clarification. You want the fence to come from the back of the house up next to your house, and you want it to extend further than your house?
No, not farther than the house, farther than the garage.
Okay, so it stops at the garage,
No, it goes past the garage.
okay?
That's what he's talking about. Okay. Thanks.
So here's the house,
Yes,
here's the garage,
yes.
and I want the fence to come around sharp and put in front of the.
Oh.
So there's the garage, and that's where the fence would end, and this is the front of the house.
Okay, so where are you gonna put your vegetable gardens?
This is for deer protection.
Oh, and here is where the sun is good,
In here.
for some reason.
That's-
Well, it's also really good in the front yard, but
That's in the rear though, you see. The fence is not gonna come out farther than the house.
I didn't say it was.
Okay, I'm asking this.
Right, but the code is that
Just a thought.
that 6-foot fencing from the rear foundation
Yes.
is, you can only go up to the rear foundation with 6-foot fence. Anything forward would have to be 4-foot fence, and if you know anything about deer, you know they get jumped at.
I do. So I have no problem with the height.
Okay.
My question was if it was gonna come in the front yard,
No.
protrude out further than the house.
No.
Okay.
Look good.
All right, thank you.
while you were discussing that with Mr. Evans, Brad pointed out to me that one of the things that the code provides for is deer protective fencing. I don't think they're talking about dog-eared wooden fences, but the fact that the fact that the code recognizes and allows for protective measures against deer seems to me weighs in favor of your, it's not directly on point, but it's indirectly that going the extra 2 feet and just a little bit further towards the street to protect your yard from the deer is not something that would be contrary to the code.
I like the sound of that.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Anyone here to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone who'd like to talk to us about fencing, deer, or anything like that, that doesn't have a position one way or the other with respect to this application? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing with respect to this matter, and we will be in recess for 5 minutes. I see both applicants are still present, so, first application on the agenda tonight is the application relating to 4004 St. Paul Boulevard. This is a type 2 action for seeker purposes. Does someone want to make a motion with respect to this application? I'll make a motion that we grant the variance with conditions. The conditions would be that the fence is to be the black aluminum, I think you said New Orleans?
Split rail, right?
Orleans.
Orleans split rail.
Orleans split rail? Who said that?
Split rail,
Split rail, okay.
as you call it.
In the front and along the north side of the driveway. That we also approve I'll refer to them as grass pavers for the turnaround. And the gate to be where the current fence ends. And by that I mean no closer than that point to St. Paul. The granting of the variance will not result in any significant change to the character of the neighborhood. There are a number of fences of this type along the various portions of St. Paul. They still allow for the appearance of openness. The alternative that wouldn't require a variance would mean that she would not be able to use the front yard as part of her daycare business. Daycare is something that is significant and important. The substantiality of the request in terms of the height is not substantial, 4 feet versus 3.5. The fence type is going to be largely conforming. The only thing that might be viewed as substantial is the linear footage, but again, it needs to go across the front of the property in order to be effective. As far as the chain link fences on the north and the south side are concerned, they're barely visible. The one on the north in particular is barely visible because it's right in the middle of all the bushes have grown around it. And on the south side, in a few years, will be very similar. It's not going to have an adverse physical or environmental impact on the neighborhood if it's granted. It's self-created only to the extent that the applicant is seeking licensure as a daycare provider and needs to meet the requirements of the certifying agency, which I think would be the Office of Children and Family Services. Is there a second?
Second.
Yep. It may have been others, but he's the one closest to my ear. Any discussion?
Is the gate going to be the black iron as well, right? Isn't that what we're saying?
Yes.
Yes, I'll find something that looks the
just a point of clarification. Is it gonna be the thing that Joe was asking about, the pointy at the top, or is that gonna be flat?
Well, I'm not putting in as a condition what the top is going to be because she's not sure of what's available. I think she expressed the desire not to have points if it's possible, which certainly would be our preference.
All right, and then just the other thing, Jim, just so you know, I'm just not in favor of this, just regarding the neighborhood character of the, turnaround and the potential the traffic backup.
Okay,
I just wanted to let you know.
that's fine. We can disagree. We've done that before. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Any abstentions? Motion carries, 6 votes in favor, 1 opposed, no abstentions. No one on the board is absent. We are finally fully constituted. Next application before us tonight is the application pertaining to 56 Brookview Drive. This is a type 2 action for seeker purposes. Does anyone wish to make a motion with respect to this application?
I'll make a motion that we should pass this.
Perfect. Did you want to go through the reasons?
Yes, I don't think it has an adverse effect. The fence is not protruding out too far out to the street, so it won't interfere in traffic or people's coming by there, and it will keep out the deer.
I'll second the motion and add to that the alternatives that wouldn't require a variance really don't exist. It's not a substantial request because she's not even coming up to the front of the house. There's not going to be an adverse physical or environmental condition other than that it's going to push the deer into neighbors' properties and have them eating their bushes instead of hers. It's not self-created because she didn't put the deer there. Any other discussion? Are those additions acceptable, Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. No one is absent. We are a fully constituted board. And we have now come to a point in time where I will move that we adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. We are adjourned.